The hospital's security canine repeatedly barked at a nurse, triggering alarms that were perplexing. However, when security reviewed the camera footage, the medical staff was stunned by what they observed. Here's the account of events. Before we proceed with today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories such as this one, be sure to subscribe for future content. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The consistent beeping of vital sign monitors provided a steady soundscape to the busy evening shift at Memorial General Hospital. Officer Trevor Daniels walked through the main lobby, Ranger positioned perfectly at his heel. The Belgian Malinois' muscular build displayed the unmistakable presence of a working dog, his alert eyes surveying their surroundings with professional focus. Evening, Officer Trevor Daniels. Sandra called from the information desk. Making your rounds? Just starting, Daniels responded. Sandra then lowered her voice. Dr. Harper was inquiring about prescription counts again in oncology. It's probably nothing, but I thought you should be aware, she added. Daniels acknowledged, registering the information. After 3 weeks assigned to this hospital security detail, the pharmaceutical discrepancies that had prompted his assignment remained elusive. Memorial General had requested canine assistance after noticing subtle irregularities in their medication tracking. Nothing dramatic, but concerning enough for the administration to seek specialized help. Daniels hadn't planned on becoming a canine handler. His career path had been directed towards tactical response until a high-speed chase resulted in 3 broken ribs and a shattered femur. When the canine division proposed he might possess the appropriate temperament for handler work, he initially doubted it. Then he encountered Ranger, already demonstrating remarkable focus and seemingly understanding Daniels' physical limitations even before Daniels himself recognized them. 4 years later, that unexpected partnership had resulted in one of the department's highest success rates. They communicated with quiet efficiency. A minor adjustment in Daniels' posture would guide Ranger's focus. The slightest movement in the dog's ear would warn Daniels of something needing attention as they approached the east corridor containing the specialized care units. Daniels observed a distinct change in Ranger's behavior. The dog's ears rose, his walk becoming more measured, muscles tightening beneath his short tan coat. The shift was slight, but noticeable to Daniels. Following Ranger's attention, he observed a nurse exiting pediatric oncology, maneuvering a medication cart. She moved with practiced ease, reviewing something on a tablet. Her appearance gave no indication of anything out of the ordinary. Wearing standard blue scrubs, with dark hair pulled back neatly, she presented the professional demeanor typical of experienced medical staff. Yet Ranger's behavior continued to intensify, shifting into what Daniels recognized as pre-alert posture. Not the full alert for narcotics or contraband, but the preparatory stance suggesting something had captured his highly trained senses. "Easy, boy," Daniels murmured as they approached. The nurse looked up, offering a professional smile that reached her tired eyes. The identification on her badge read Abigail Winters, RN, Pediatric Oncology. "Good evening, officer," she said, her voice even and composed. "First time seeing a police dog in our department." Daniels replied, "We're checking all departments. Just routine security rounds." As she passed by, Ranger's head followed her, his focus intense, which sparked Daniels' investigative instincts. It wasn't his standard alert for narcotics. This presented an unusual situation, deviating from their typical detection procedures. "First time on the oncology floor?" inquired Dr. Martin, the hospital security chief, as he approached from a nearby corridor. "Abigail Winters is one of our top performers. She transferred from Chicago Memorial about 18 months ago. Triple certified, proficient in 4 languages, and she volunteers at the free clinic on weekends. We're fortunate to have her." As they continued their patrol, Daniels resolved to learn more about Abigail Winters. Throughout their time working together, Ranger had never been mistaken when he focused his attention in this manner. For the subsequent 4 days, Daniels modified their patrol routes to incorporate more regular passes through the pediatric oncology department. He stated it was part of a comprehensive coverage plan. However, his real intention was to witness additional interactions between Ranger and Nurse Winters. Every encounter yielded the same outcome. Ranger's focused attention, a subtle tension in his body, but without the formal alert he'd been trained to give for narcotics or other contraband. James Wong, the night security supervisor, observed as they reviewed camera footage in the security office. Something I should know about? Daniels hesitated, reluctant to voice suspicions based solely on his dog's behavior. Just being thorough, Ranger has shown some interest in that department. Wong raised an eyebrow. He wondered if the interest was in medications or in Nurse Winters, noting that both he and his dog had observed her. He smiled. You wouldn't be the first officer captivated by those green eyes. He added that half the male staff had asked her out. Daniels insisted it was professional interest, though he understood the assumption. Abigail Winters was undeniably attractive, but it was her interaction with Ranger that held his attention. He then inquired, has Winters ever been involved in any security incidents? Were there any medication errors, patient grievances, or anything out of the ordinary? Wong's face became serious. Actually, the opposite. She consistently achieves the highest patient satisfaction scores within the department. Families often request her directly for end-stage cases. He examined Daniels intently. What's the reason for the focus on our top nurse? Rather than providing a direct response, Daniels inquired, could you retrieve patient outcome data for pediatric oncology, covering the past 18 months organized by attending nurse? Wong appeared uneasy but agreed, accessing the hospital's data analytics system. This is not a common occurrence, as these reports usually require administrative approval. Please consider it part of our security audit, Daniels responded, observing the data appear on screen. The resulting graph displayed patient mortality rates, categorized by nursing staff. The majority of nurses were near the statistical average, given the seriousness of pediatric cancer cases. One statistic stood out subtly yet steadily. It was Nurse Abigail Winters' performance. That's peculiar, Wong commented. Her patient mortality rate was approximately 8% higher than expected based on statistical models. Could be a chance occurrence, Daniels offered, presenting an alternative viewpoint. Perhaps she receives the most challenging patient assignments. Wong acknowledged this possibility, though a concerned look crossed his face. However, the patient assignment rotation system is designed to distribute complex cases fairly among all competent staff. He entered a few more keystrokes, displaying another report. This presented another anomaly, unplanned medication interventions during night shifts. These were instances where patients required urgent treatment due to unexpected reactions or complications. This graph highlighted a clearer trend. Emergency interventions occurred at almost double the rate during winter shifts when compared to other nurses handling comparable patient assignments. Has anyone looked into this? Daniels inquired. Wong indicated his disagreement. These connections would only become noticeable if someone was actively searching for them. Medicine isn't a precise science. Unforeseen complications arise, particularly with pediatric cancer patients. Daniels considered Ranger's regular response to Winters. His partner wasn't signaling a narcotics diversion. The behavior would have been clearly distinct. This indicated something else. Something Ranger had been trained to recognize, but Daniels had yet to determine. Could I see footage of Winters preparing medications? He inquired. Wong retrieved several video clips displaying the nurse within the medication preparation room. Her procedure seemed impeccable, with double-checking of dosages, thorough documentation, and adherence to all established protocols. However, something about her actions gave Daniels the impression it was staged, as though she was acutely aware of being watched. What's located in the lower compartment of the medication carts? Daniels inquired, observing that Winters sometimes went to this area outside the camera's view. These were typically personal items. Hospital policy permits nurses to keep a backup set of scrubs, lunch, and personal belongings, none related to medical supplies. Afterward, that evening, Daniels stationed himself and Ranger close to the nurse's station as shift change neared. Nurse Winters came out of a patient's room, appearing professional but tired after 12 hours of work. When she saw them, a brief expression crossed her face. A moment of caution preceded her regaining composure. Officer Daniels, we meet again. Her smile appeared sincere, but didn't fully reach her eyes. Your partner seems exceptionally alert tonight. As if validating her comment, Ranger's stance grew rigid, his attention fixed on her medication cart instead of on Winters himself. Daniels noticed the difference. A long shift? He inquired casually. It was a challenging one, she responded. We lost Ethan on April 12th this afternoon. She succumbed to terminal leukemia, though the passing occurred more swiftly than anticipated. Her voice conveyed appropriate compassion, and her expression was carefully managed to project professional concern, avoiding overt emotion. I'm sorry to hear that, Daniels said, observing her intently. Was it anticipated? A brief hardening flickered in her eyes. In pediatric oncology, officer, death is invariably expected. The only factors are when and how. She looked at her watch. Please excuse me, I need to finish my documentation prior to the handoff. As she departed, Nurse Chun from the following shift came forward, observing Winters' departing form with a concerned look. Another patient? She inquired of Daniels softly. A boy in room April 12th, he confirmed. Winters stated that it was a terminal case. Chen's expression grew serious. Ethan had been responding favorably to his new treatment protocol last week. His lab results had been improving. She shook her head. Within the field of oncology, one becomes accustomed to managing expectations regarding patient outcomes. However, occasionally, the results defy explanation. How frequently does that occur? Daniels inquired, adopting a relaxed manner. Chun paused, displaying evident discomfort. Medicine isn't always predictable, particularly when dealing with pediatric cancer, she stated softly. But candidly, it appears to happen more often during Abby's work periods. The other nurses have observed this as well, though no one wishes to voice their concerns. Her records are consistently impeccable, and her procedures are technically faultless. As Chun moved to commence her shift, Daniels knelt beside Ranger, who remained attentive to the path Winters had taken. What are you detecting, boy? He murmured, gently stroking behind the dog's ears. What isn't she revealing? He remembered Ranger's advanced training, extending beyond routine narcotics identification. The canine unit possessed certification in detecting chemical adulterants, substances introduced into medications that would not be identified during routine inventory assessments. This specialized capability arose following an incident involving a hospital staff member suspected of tampering with patient medications. The possibility deeply concerned Daniels. If Winters were somehow altering medications instead of misappropriating them, it would clarify both Ranger's atypical alert responses and the concerning patient outcome data. Furthermore, Daniels suspected events far more serious than drug theft were occurring at Memorial General. He needed proof beyond data and animal reactions before presenting such a significant concern to hospital leadership. Charging their leading nurse necessitated undeniable certainty, so Daniels resolved to request security camera installation in unmonitored zones, particularly focusing on the medication preparation room during winter shifts. The overnight shift at Memorial General operated with a distinct pace compared to the daytime shift. Fewer staff members, lower lighting, and the quietness of the essential personnel fostered an environment where observations were more pronounced. Daniels had specifically asked for the night shift to monitor Nurse Winters, who had changed to the night rotation for the week. They situated themselves carefully close to the central monitoring station, allowing them to observe without drawing immediate attention. He told the inquisitive desk attendant that they were conducting a night shift security audit. We're evaluating protocols across all time periods, he explained. At precisely 2:17 a.m., Winters appeared at the far end of the corridor, pushing her medication cart with practiced efficiency. She moved with a confident and familiar air, her steps purposeful as she entered the room of a new patient, 8-year-old Michael Torres, recently admitted with an aggressive form of lymphoma. Ranger's reaction was immediate and intense. His muscles tensed, ears forward, eyes locked on Winters' cart as she disappeared into the room. Daniels had observed this behavior consistently enough to trust it without question. He whispered to the security attendant, "Wait here." He needed to observe the medication preparation room. With practiced stealth, Daniels positioned himself where he could see into the medication room adjacent to the nurse's station. The transparent walls allowed staff supervision while providing a controlled environment for drug preparation. 3 minutes later, Winters emerged from Michael's room and headed directly to this preparation area. Her actions were deliberate as she logged into the medication system, retrieved several vials, and began preparing what appeared to be a standard treatment protocol. Nothing in her actions seemed out of the ordinary. She double-checked dosages, documented each step, and adhered to standard procedures with textbook precision. Then, glancing quickly around the quiet floor, she reached beneath her scrub top and removed a small cosmetic bag from an inner pocket. With practiced efficiency, she unzipped it and removed a small vial holding a clear liquid. The vial lacked a pharmacy label and a tracking barcode, a significant breach of protocol. Daniels held his breath, observing as Winters carefully added several drops from this unauthorized vial to Michael's medication bag. Her movements were quick and confident, revealing a routine she had performed repeatedly. She placed the vial back into her cosmetic bag, carefully securing it, and continued her documentation as if everything was normal. The whole process took under 20 seconds. Winters completed her documentation, seeming entirely calm as she got ready to administer the altered medication to her patient. As she turned to leave, she stopped short. Rangers was positioned in the hallway, his focused attention fixed on her medication cart, with Daniels close behind. A fleeting, cold expression crossed her face before her professional demeanor returned. "Officer Daniels working late tonight?" He responded calmly, observing her placement between him and the medication. "Preparing treatment for Michael Torres?" She replied, her voice even, though her eyes remained cautious. "Is there something I can assist you with?" Daniels indicated the medication bag. "I observed you added something from a personal vial. That isn't standard procedure, is it?" The question lingered between them. For a brief moment, Winters' professionalism seemed to falter, her fingers subtly tightening on the bag. She then offered a smile, a familiar, assured look that had probably deflected doubt on numerous occasions. "You must be incorrect. Everything I've prepared originates from pharmacy stock. Please feel free to review the documentation." She presented her tablet, which accurately documented all medications, with no record of the unauthorized addition. "Rangers appears quite interested in your cart," Daniels noted, observing his partner's watchful stance. "He's specifically trained to identify substances not permitted in hospital environments." Winters' face grew stern. "Officer Daniels, these medications have strict time constraints. My patient requires them to be administered according to the prescribed schedule." She attempted to move past him, but Daniels adjusted his stance, remaining in place. "I'd like to see what's in your personal cosmetic bag," he stated softly. "That would be an invasion of privacy," she responded promptly. "Unless you have a warrant or specific hospital authorization, my personal belongings are protected. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a patient waiting." Their confrontation was broken up by the night nursing supervisor. "Is there a problem here?" Winters immediately adopted a concerned expression. "Michael's medication was getting delayed. I had just been explaining to Officer Daniels that timing is critical for chemotherapy protocols." Daniels made a split-second decision. Without immediate evidence, he couldn't prevent her from administering the medication, but he could ensure it was verified first. "I have observed a potential protocol violation. I would like pharmacy to verify this medication before administration." The supervisor looked startled. "This is quite unexpected during a shift. Introducing unapproved components to patient medications is also concerning," Daniels stated, observing Winters' reaction closely. "Hospital regulations allow security personnel to ask for confirmation if there's a suspicion of alteration." The term alteration created a palpable unease in the hallway. The supervisor's demeanor changed from uncertainty to worry. "Nurse Winters should have the pharmacy review this. I will personally deliver it to them." Winters argued that it was unnecessary, her composure beginning to falter. "The medication will degrade if not administered promptly," she stated. "Then we'll prepare a fresh dose while pharmacy analyzes this one," the supervisor responded firmly, taking the bag. "Protocol is clear when tampering is alleged." Winters' eyes shifted between them, calculations seeming to struggle beneath her careful expression. This is ridiculous. I've done nothing wrong. She retreated, her hand moving reflexively towards the pocket holding her cosmetic bag. Don't, Daniels said softly. Ranger approached, his training clear in his focused awareness. I'd like you to empty your pockets, Nurse Winters. I do not consent to a search, she responded, her voice firm. This is harassment. The supervisor stepped in. Abby, to expedite this, would you be willing to show us what's in your pockets? Then we can all return to our tasks. Winters paused, appearing to weigh her options. Then, carefully, she took out her hospital ID, a pen, and her cell phone. Satisfied? She asked, her voice devoid of warmth. However, Daniels had noticed the faint shape of a cosmetic bag beneath her scrubs. There's something else, Daniels stated. The bag you used before. At that moment, Winters' demeanor shifted. Her composed facade vanished, exposing a calculating and cold look underneath. I want to speak with hospital administration and my union representative. I will not continue this discussion without legal representation. The supervisor appeared increasingly concerned. Abby, please just display the bag to allow us to proceed. Michael requires his medication. Then, prepare a fresh dose, Winters stated, her carefully controlled composure visibly deteriorating. I am not participating in this line of questioning. Daniels reached for his radio. I request security be dispatched to the pediatric oncology medication preparation area. There is a possible medication tampering situation in progress. Within minutes, security personnel arrived, followed shortly by the on-call hospital administrator. As the situation escalated, Winters became increasingly defensive, declining to show the contents of her cosmetic bag or permit examination of her medication cart. I want these accusations documented, she insisted. My record is spotless. My patients receive exemplary care. It's important that we verify the medications you've prepared, the administrator said, instructing security to secure the medication cart and preparation area, treating them as potential evidence. Daniels then quietly spoke to the administrator. I need authorization for hidden cameras in the medication room and preservation of tonight's footage. I believe Nurse Winters has been tampering with patient medications for some time. The seriousness of the accusation became palpable. Should the allegations be substantiated, it would signify a devastating failure of confidence and possibly several instances of patient harm. The administrator acknowledged the severity of the situation with a somber nod. As Winters proceeded to the administrative offices, her gaze locked with Daniels, conveying a disturbing intensity. He observed the absence of fear. Instead, he detected only calculation and a more unsettling element that evoked a palpable chill. Ranger's earlier warnings proved accurate. The contents of that cosmetic bag were clearly not intended to aid patient recovery. By 6 a.m., the hospital conference room had been converted into a temporary command center. Digital displays showed security camera recordings, medication records, and patient files as a serious-looking group of hospital administrators, security staff, and police examined the information. Daniels was positioned close to the doorway. Ranger stood watch beside him as the hospital's chief of medicine replayed the security footage for the third time. There, Dr. Harrison stated, pausing the image. That is not standard procedure. The display showed Nurse Winters in the medication preparation room 3 nights earlier. She looked around, verifying her solitude, and then removed a small vial from her cosmetic bag. She worked with practiced efficiency, adding drops of an unknown substance to an 4 bag, carefully returning the vial to her bag, and then proceeding with documentation as if nothing unusual had occurred. The security director reported identifying 12 separate instances of this behavior over the past week. Scrolling through time-stamped images, these incidents always occurred during night shifts, and always when she believed no one was watching. Hospital Administrator Patricia Goldman rubbed her fingertips against her temples. The patient in this footage is Emma Reyes, located in room 409. What occurred to her following the medication administration? Pediatric oncologist, consulting his tablet, stated that she experienced unexplained tachycardia and respiratory distress roughly 40 minutes post-administration. We initially believed it was attributable to a reaction to her chemotherapy protocol. And did she recover? Goldman inquired, her voice strained. The oncologist's expression grew somber. Ultimately, she needed intensive care and experienced disruptions to her treatment timeline. Daniels observed their reactions as the meaning became clear. The first shock had faded, replaced by dread as more information emerged. This wasn't a case of unauthorized drug use for personal gain or financial benefit. It was intentional harm to a patient. What about the contents of the cosmetic bag? Dr. Harrison asked, addressing the police detective who had joined them. The lab is expediting the analysis, Detective Morales stated. Initial findings suggest a compound that imitates signs of infection in the bloodstream. In effect, it deceives the body, triggering an inflammatory reaction that mirrors sepsis. A palpable silence descended upon the room. The discovery was more unsettling than straightforward drug theft. This represented deliberate harm targeted at vulnerable children. How could we have overlooked this? Goldman questioned, her usual professional demeanor faltering. She has been with us for only 18 months. Her references were excellent. We've contacted Chicago Memorial, Morales explained. They have no record of an Abigail Winters ever being employed there. This revelation was significant. Falsified credentials, deliberate patient harm. The case was growing beyond anything they had initially suspected. What about patient outcomes during her employment? Daniels inquired. Beyond the incidents we've identified this week? The pediatric oncologist tapped his tablet, displaying a statistical analysis. We've identified 27 patients who experienced unexpected complications during Nurse Winters' shifts. 9 of those children died. His voice faltered. Deaths that were attributed to complications of their cancer or treatment. Dr. Harrison slammed her hand against the table. She's been hurting them deliberately, all this time, and we never suspected. She turned to Daniels. How did your dog know? What did he detect that our entire medical and security staff missed? Daniels looked down at Ranger, whose training and instincts had started the investigation. Ranger was initially trained for pharmaceutical detection, but he received further certification in chemical adulterants. He was identifying the foreign substance she was adding to the medications, something that wouldn't show up in your standard inventory controls. Where is Winters now? Goldman asked. In custody, Morales replied. A warrant was secured utilizing the available security footage. The district attorney is formulating charges, including at least multiple counts of assault, with the possibility of attempted murder contingent on the laboratory analysis determining her intent. A security technician entered the room, presenting a tablet to the security director. Sir, we have accessed Winters' locker. You must view this. The director's complexion changed as he reviewed the images. She maintained records, comprehensive notes regarding patient reactions, timestamps, and dosages. He looked up, visibly shaken, and displayed photographs of the children taken during their distress events. The revelation sent a chill through the room. This wasn't opportunistic behavior, it was methodical, documented, and calculated harm. We need to check her previous employment, Morales stated. If she falsified her credentials here, she likely did it elsewhere. There could be more victims. And we need to review every patient currently under her care, Dr. Harrison added. Some patients may still have contaminated medications in their systems or IVs. Goldman nodded, the burden of responsibility clear on her face. I'll authorize emergency blood work for all patients who received care from Winters in the past week and will need to notify families. She hesitated, the seriousness of the situation becoming apparent. How do we inform parents that someone they trusted with their children's lives was intentionally inflicting harm? A silence returned to the room as the question remained without a response. Daniels recalled the children he had observed during his patrols, already struggling with severe illnesses, their young bodies fighting cancer, and then being subjected to further harm by someone in a position of responsibility. What could have driven her? The pediatric oncologist inquired eventually. Was it money? Drugs? A form of excitement? Morales reviewed his notes. The contents of her locker and her responses during the initial interview suggest what psychological profilers identify as medical deception disorder, previously referred to as Munchausen by proxy. She appeared to gain satisfaction from fabricating medical emergencies and subsequently participating in or witnessing the reactions to them. But these weren't her children, Dr. Harrison pointed out. The understanding of this disorder has changed, Morales clarified. In certain situations, especially within medical environments, some perpetrators direct their actions toward patients instead of family members. The motivation can stem from the satisfaction of participating in an emergency response, appearing skilled during a crisis, or simply from exerting dominance over vulnerable individuals. As more details emerged, Daniels received a text message from the evidence technicians examining Winter's apartment. The journals discovered contained documentation covering more than 5 years. Past employment history shows records from 3 other hospitals, with a recurring pattern observed at each location. Winter's actions were escalating rapidly, indicating a years-long history of patient harm across multiple facilities. Her technique, involving the administration of substances that resembled natural illness complications, enabled her to avoid detection, progressing from hospital to hospital as concerns might have started to arise. Until a Belgian Malinois with specialized training detected what humans had missed. Goldman stood, her decision made. We will implement full transparency protocol. All affected families will be notified today. We will contact regulatory agencies and previous employers immediately, and we will implement emergency medication verification protocols for all pediatric patients. She turned to Daniels and Ranger. If you hadn't trusted your partner's instincts, this could have continued indefinitely. Ranger remained watchful next to Daniels, not realizing the significance of the discovery his specialized training revealed. For him, it was merely detection work, identifying an anomalous substance. For the children in the oncology unit, it represented a crucial difference, a reprieve from further suffering and an opportunity to concentrate entirely on recovery. The pediatric oncology floor underwent a complete overnight transformation. Law enforcement personnel were positioned at key locations within the hallway. Forensic specialists carefully examined the pharmacy, and hospital security personnel diligently monitored each patient's room. Relatives, who had gathered following urgent notifications from the hospital, clustered in smaller groups, their expressions reflecting a blend of apprehension and anger, while hospital officials detailed the unfolding events. Daniels and Ranger continued to be positioned close to the main nurses' station, observing how Detective Morales managed the expanding inquiry. The district attorney authorized charges given the substantial proof. However, they required Winter's complete confession to grasp the extent of her actions. She stayed in an administrative conference room, being watched, and had declined to speak further unless her lawyer was there. 6 active 4 bags have been confirmed to contain adulterants, according to a report from the hospital pharmacist, who presented the tablet displaying laboratory results, all prepared by Winters within the last 48 hours. The affected bags have been replaced, and blood samples have been taken from each patient to determine exposure levels. Morales nodded grimly. Regarding the substance itself, the pharmacist explained that it is a sophisticated compound which triggers inflammatory markers. This method essentially mimics the body's response to infection without being detectable in standard toxicology screens. The symptoms appear as complications of the underlying cancer or side effects of treatment. As Daniels observed, she knew exactly what she was doing. A disturbance near the elevators drew their attention. A man in an expensive suit had arrived, immediately demanding to see Nurse Winters. The attorney's arrival signaled the start of the investigation's next stage, a formal interrogation that could potentially expose the complete scope of Winter's actions. Officer Daniels, Morales stated, "I need you and Ranger present for this interview. Her reaction to your dog might elicit responses we wouldn't otherwise obtain." They proceeded to the conference room where Winters was being held. She appeared remarkably composed, her posture stiff, hands arranged precisely on the table before her. The slight lines around her mouth were the only indication of any stress. As Ranger entered the room, her gaze immediately found him. A brief, fleeting expression, perhaps hatred, perhaps fear, crossed her face before she regained her composure. "Ms. Winters," Morales began after the introductions were finished, "we have confirmed the presence of foreign substances and medications you prepared. Substances causing patients to experience life-threatening symptoms have been identified. We have recovered your journals detailing patient reactions comprehensively. Your guilt is now undeniable. Her attorney attempted to object, but Winters quieted him with a subtle motion. What precisely am I being accused of, detective? Providing excellent care to terminally ill children? Remaining with them during their most challenging times? Daniels interrupted, visibly repulsed, unable to hold back his words about the deliberate infliction of suffering on children already battling cancer. Winters' gaze moved towards him, sharp and assessing. A compelling suggestion. Can you demonstrate intent? Morales presented a tablet, displaying a video compilation of security footage that showed her repeatedly adding unauthorized substances to medications. Your own records establish intent, Ms. Winters. Detailed notes regarding dosages, timing, and anticipated reactions were present. Photographs of suffering children were also included. Then, a subtle shift occurred in her expression. It wasn't remorse, but rather a professional disappointment at being uncovered. She briefly looked at Ranger, who kept his watchful stance, his training clearly visible in his controlled alertness. The dog, she stated eventually. That's where I erred. I conducted a thorough investigation of the hospital's security protocols, taking into consideration cameras, inventory controls, and witness routines. However, I did not foresee a specially trained canine. A small, chilling smile touched her lips. A miscalculation on my part. Her attorney appeared alarmed. Abigail, I advise you to cease speaking. It is fine, Richard, she interjected calmly. The evidence is complete. I acknowledge a checkmate when I see one. She leaned forward slightly. You desire to understand why. As expected, Morales stated, switching on the recording equipment on the table. Winters' demeanor stayed unruffled as she proceeded with her speech, her tone professional and distant. Medicine involves control. The misconception that we can manage the unpredictable nature of failing human biology. Most healthcare professionals overestimate their influence. I chose to accept a different form of control. By harming children, Daniels questioned, his hand automatically moving to Ranger's shoulder. She explained, as if outlining a basic principle, that by establishing scenarios she could anticipate and control, she mitigated the feeling of urgent intervention, the parents' relief when their child unexpectedly improved, and the admiration of colleagues for handling difficult cases. Her expression remained unsettlingly calm. There's power in that instant when life and death are poised delicately, and you alone determine the outcome. Her revelation caused a palpable shift in the atmosphere. This was not a crime driven by emotion or need. It was a deliberate, ongoing infliction of harm for personal psychological satisfaction. How many? Morales inquired softly. How many children have you harmed? Winters inclined her head a little, pausing to think. Hurt is open to interpretation, detective. Many were already facing life-threatening conditions. I merely hastened or complicated their paths, she responded, shrugging. I've been employed at 7 hospitals over the past 8 years. I seldom maintained exact records. The informality of her reply hit Daniels with the force of a physical blow. 7 hospitals, 8 years. The potential number of victims was staggering. Throughout the interview, Winters described her methods with the dispassionate accuracy of someone analyzing an academic case study, instead of recounting her own crimes against vulnerable children. She elaborated on how she chose victims, how she adjusted dosages to produce particular symptoms, and how she recorded responses for her personal records. And the deaths? Morales persisted. What about the children who did not survive your interventions? For the first time, Winters displayed a visible emotional reaction. It wasn't regret, but rather something akin to professional pride. Those cases offered distinct learning opportunities. The boundary between crisis and catastrophe is compelling to analyze. Her lawyer subsequently stepped in, understanding the detrimental effect her words were having. However, the harm had already occurred. Winters' admission guaranteed she would be barred from healthcare employment and would likely face decades in prison, potentially for the rest of her life. As preparations were made to transfer her to police custody, Winters paused near Daniels and Ranger. Remarkable animal, she noted clinically. What specific compound was he trained to detect? Justice, Daniels replied concisely, Observing officers escort her away in handcuffs. 21 days following Abigail Winters' arrest, Memorial General Hospital held a private meeting for the families impacted by her actions. The spacious conference room was occupied by parents, whose children had suffered unforeseen complications during their cancer treatments, complications now recognized as the consequence of intentional manipulation, instead of the normal progression of their illnesses. Hospital Administrator Dr. Patricia Goldman addressed the gathered families, her usual confident appearance softened by the seriousness of her role. There are no words sufficient to convey our grief over the events that occurred within our facility, she began. We did not fulfill our essential obligation to safeguard vulnerable patients entrusted to our care. Daniels stood at the back of the room with Ranger beside him. Several families specifically requested their presence to thank the K-9 officer who had uncovered Winters' actions. Goldman detailed the hospital's extensive response, including new medication protocols, enhanced security measures, and psychological support for affected patients. Daniels noted the spectrum of feelings present in the room: grief, anger, relief, and the distinct, troubled look on the faces of parents reflecting on every challenging instance their child had endured during treatment. The investigation has verified 19 instances of intentional medication tampering at our facility, Goldman stated, her voice remaining composed despite the troubling news she was conveying. Customized treatment plans have been created for the children who survived these events, designed to handle any potential long-term consequences. For the children who were lost, her voice faltered, we cannot undo this, but we pledge to provide support in any way possible. A father in the front row stood, his face etched with grief and anger. My daughter, Sophie, passed away during what you termed a crisis event on Winters' shift 3 months ago. She had been recovering prior to that night. His voice trembled. How can I ever trust a hospital again? How can any of us? The room fell silent, the question unanswered until a small voice from the doorway eased the tension. Officer Ranger helped me get better. Everyone's attention focused as Michael Torres, 8 years old, was wheeled into the room by his mother. The boy, whose altered medication had been stopped the night of Winters' arrest, appeared pale but resolute, with an 4-pole beside his wheelchair. He indicated Ranger directly. The police dog understood the medicine was incorrect. That's what my doctor explained. Michael offered a faint smile. He's a hero dog. The uncomplicated declaration from a child appeared to alter the atmosphere in the room. Families started recounting their experiences, detailing instances where their children had faced unexplained difficulties, now illuminated by Winters' admission. The shared trauma was evident, yet so was the comfort of realizing these events weren't arbitrary misfortunes or shortcomings in medical understanding. Following the close of the formal meeting, Daniels was approached by numerous parents eager to meet Ranger. Many expressed their gratitude, often tearfully, for his faith in his partner's instincts, especially given the absence of clear warning signs. The hospital's pediatric psychologist had proposed that an encounter with Ranger could be beneficial for the children, offering a way to work through their experiences by centering on the canine who had apprehended the person who harmed them. While children gently stroked Ranger under Daniel's watchful guidance, Detective Morales spoke to him privately regarding developments in the investigation. The case is broadening, Morales stated softly. We're certain Winters was employed at hospitals in 4 states, consistently within pediatric units, always involving vulnerable patients. 3 additional hospitals have restarted inquiries into unusual patient fatalities during her time with them. What is the total number of victims? Daniels observed, noticing how Ranger calmly received affection from a delicate girl whose arms showed marks from many 4 lines. We might never know the precise number, Morales confessed. Her journals cover a span of 6 years, but we believe her actions started during nursing school. A cautious assessment suggests more than 50 children were harmed, with at least 17 deaths that can be clearly linked to her actions. The extent of Winters' crimes proved hard to grasp. A campaign spanning years, masked by a veneer of professionalism, had, according to her initial psychological evaluation, presented a clear example of what clinicians now recognized as medical deception disorder, a pathological compulsion to fabricate and manage medical emergencies to fulfill profound psychological needs for control, recognition, and affirmation. The prosecutors expressed assurance, and Daniels inquired, Morales affirmed. Her admission by itself would suffice. The combination of physical evidence, documentation, and witness statements suggests she faces multiple life sentences. She will not be able to work in healthcare again, nor will she have access to vulnerable patients. A small hand tugged at Daniel's uniform pants. Michael Torres looked up at him from his wheelchair, his eyes serious, beyond his years. Officer Daniels, can Ranger visit me sometimes when I have treatments? My mom says he might be allowed as a therapy dog. Daniels knelt to the boy's level. That could potentially be arranged. Ranger is quite remarkable. He's received training as both a detection dog and a therapy dog. Michael nodded gravely. He was aware that the problematic nurse was harming children when others were not. Perhaps he can offer some comfort now. This straightforward request summarized everything about the case that had impacted Daniels so profoundly. Children battling serious illnesses had encountered an extra, concealed threat from someone in a position of trust. Despite such a deep breach of trust, solace could still be found in the presence of a dog whose specialized training and unwavering instincts revealed the truth. As the families slowly left, Dr. Goldman spoke to Daniels. We are establishing a K-9 screening program for all pediatric medications, she explained. Your department has consented to assist in training our security personnel. Cannot reverse the past, but it may avert comparable incidents going forward. Daniels nodded, observing Ranger's careful interaction with the last child. I'm just doing what I was trained to do, he said softly, detecting substances that shouldn't be present. Goldman countered, no, you both accomplished something far more significant. You prioritized intuition over surface impressions. Everyone perceived Winters as an exemplary nurse. You recognized her true nature, because you listened to your partner when he expressed concern. At that instant, observing Ranger's gaze directed upwards, filled with complete trust, Daniels grasped the profound strength of the K-9 handler bond, a partnership founded on reciprocal respect and steadfast belief in each other's capabilities. Collaboratively, they had exposed a predator concealed in an ordinary environment, concluding a sequence of incidents that could have persisted without intervention. Have you ever observed an animal detect something humans overlooked? Animals frequently exhibit remarkable instincts, capable of sensing things we cannot. Please share your experiences in the comments section. What are your opinions regarding hospitals utilizing K-9 security units? Do you believe more healthcare facilities should incorporate service dogs to enhance both security and patient well-being? We value your input. Considering the scenario, if you were Officer Daniels, would you have relied on your K-9 partner's warnings, even when all others defended Nurse Winters' reputation? Occasionally, relying on our intuition or our partner's intuition can make a significant impact. Thank you for watching today's remarkable K-9 story. If you enjoyed learning about Ranger's life-saving work, remember to subscribe and enable notifications by clicking the bell icon to ensure you don't miss our uploads every Tuesday and Friday. Check out these other inspiring K-9 hero stories appearing on your screen now. We appreciate you watching. Please share this video with those who recognize the remarkable connection between handlers and their K-9 partners. Until next time, remain safe, understanding these four-legged heroes are working diligently to safeguard us all. A service dog barked continuously at a stroller in a busy mall. The mother became angry, security was summoned, and shoppers grew frustrated. But when the blanket was finally removed, what they witnessed moved the entire crowd to tears. Before we begin today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories about police dogs like this one, remember to subscribe. Prepare for what's about to unfold. The Westfield Shopping Center was filled with the usual weekend shopping activity. Families with strollers filled with bags, teenagers gathered around the food court, and a continuous blend of 1,000 conversations filled the space under the large glass ceiling. Afternoon sunlight shone through the skylights, creating warm areas on the polished tile floors as shoppers moved through the busy walkways between stores. Jessica Winters navigated the Saturday crowd with a practiced and efficient manner, her steps deliberate and measured. Beside her walked Echo, a Belgian Malinois wearing a professional red service vest with medical alert patches. Unlike the hurried shoppers who bumped shoulders and moved around each other, Echo moved with military precision, maintaining a perfect heel position despite the chaos, his attentive brown eyes occasionally glancing up at Jessica's face to check her status. "Excuse me, please," Jessica said as they moved past a group of teenagers who had stopped suddenly to take selfies in front of a clothing display. She kept her right hand lightly on Echo's specialized mobility harness, not because she required the physical support that day, but because the connection helped her feel stable amidst the overwhelming sights and sounds of the mall. The holiday decorations had already been put up, even though Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away. Large silver and red decorations were suspended from the ceiling, and artificial pine garlands adorned the railings of the second-floor walkways. A faint piano version of Winter Wonderland played from afar, struggling to be heard over the noise of the crowd, the sounds of conversations, squeaking stroller wheels, and periodic announcements from the mall's public address system. Jessica glanced at her watch. It was 2:17 p.m. She had planned this trip carefully, arriving after the lunch rush but before the evening crowd descended. Her mental checklist was almost finished. New running shoes, the birthday gift for her niece, and one more stop at the bookstore to pick up the novel her book club was reading next. Then she could return to the quiet sanctuary of her apartment before the familiar tension in her shoulders escalated into a full-blown anxiety attack. Echo stayed calm and composed, his training clearly visible in his deliberate actions. He didn't behave like typical dogs who might investigate spilled food or react to appealing smells. Instead, he concentrated entirely on Jessica and any possible dangers to her safety. When a young child unexpectedly cried at a store called Toyland, Echo quickly assessed Jessica's response, prepared to offer deep pressure therapy should the noise upset her. Fortunately, this was a positive day. Jessica reacted with a slight flinch, then proceeded walking with a deep breath. The central court of the mall appeared before them, a circular space featuring a decorative fountain and benches for weary shoppers to rest. Jessica guided them toward the quieter path along the perimeter, avoiding the congested group of people observing a weekend product demonstration. Echo modified his speed seamlessly, guiding their path as though he and Jessica functioned as one unit within the crowd, their synchronicity stemming from countless hours of shared experience. Jessica had not always required Echo's presence. 5 years ago, she was Staff Sergeant Jessica Winters, a combat medic with the 4th Infantry Division, recognized for maintaining remarkable composure amidst the most severe mass casualty events. She had treated wounded soldiers under fire, stabilized blast injuries in helicopters, and once performed an emergency airway procedure during a sandstorm with almost zero visibility. Her commanding officers had described her as unshakable. Then occurred the roadside bomb outside Kandahar. Jessica had been the first to respond, treating 3 critically wounded soldiers while awaiting medevac. She had rescued all 3, but the 4th, her closest friend on the deployment, had died despite her desperate efforts. The consequences were stark: traumatic brain injury, shrapnel wounds to her left leg, and the unseen wounds of PTSD that ultimately proved more debilitating than her physical injuries. Returning to civilian life had become a minefield of triggers. Crowds, sudden noises, certain smells that instantly transported her back to the worst moments of her service. She explored therapy, medication, and support groups, but none provided complete relief until the VA's service dog program paired her with Echo 3 years ago. Echo was a unique service dog. This Belgian Malinois had been removed from a military working dog program, not due to a lack of skill, but because of his gentle nature, a characteristic that made him ideally suited for medical alert duties. His specialized training encompassed recognizing the minute biochemical alterations that foreshadow Jessica's panic attacks and seizures, a complication stemming from her TBI that occurred infrequently but posed a significant risk. "He is observing your body chemistry," the trainer had clarified during their placement. "Variations in your respiration, minuscule perspiration, and even alterations in your walk that you won't perceive deliberately. Echo will provide a warning before you are even aware of an issue." Their bond had developed past the boundaries of training. Echo possessed a remarkable skill in evaluating risks in Jessica's surroundings, differentiating between minor anxieties and real threats. He would position his body to shield Jessica from anything potentially triggering, whether approaching strangers or sudden movements, while largely remaining unnoticed during everyday interactions. Above all, Echo had restored Jessica's independence. Prior to this, she had rarely left her apartment, neglecting medical appointments and withdrawing from friends and family. Currently, she volunteers twice weekly at the VA hospital, has restarted her nursing education, and can navigate public spaces like this mall, still challenging but achievable with Echo's consistent support and alerting abilities. Many people didn't realize that beneath Echo's calm professional appearance lay a dog capable of detecting incredibly small chemical shifts, changes undetectable by human senses or medical instruments. His alerts stemmed not only from excellent training, but also from a complex biological detection system combined with steadfast loyalty. Jessica directed Echo towards the central court fountain, intending to cross over to reach the bookstore on the opposite side. As they walked past a row of benches near the fountain, Echo's demeanor shifted, his ears pricked forward, his head lifted slightly higher, and his gait lost its fluid rhythm for a brief moment. Jessica noticed it instantly, having spent 3 years together. Even the slightest changes in Echo's behavior registered like alarm bells. "What is it, buddy?" she murmured, scanning the area for potential triggers. Echo's attention had fixed on something ahead and to their right. Jessica's attention followed his gaze to a navy blue stroller situated next to a bench. A woman, seemingly in her 30s and with dark hair styled in a loose bun, was organizing shopping bags nearby. The baby in the stroller seemed to be sleeping calmly under a thin blanket featuring cartoon elephants. Jessica softly adjusted Echo's harness, trying to get his attention. "Come on, focus." However, instead of following her instruction, Echo's body became even more rigid. A soft whine came from him, a sound Jessica had seldom heard from her well-trained service dog. Echo moved closer to the stroller, abandoning his heel position for the first time in public that Jessica could recall. "Echo, heel," Jessica instructed more sternly, feeling a blush rise on her cheeks as a nearby elderly couple looked in their direction. Service dogs were meant to be unobtrusive in public spaces. That was the expectation. Echo had never deviated from protocol in this way before. The dog obeyed with evident hesitation, returning to her side while still watching the stroller. After 3 more steps, Echo stopped abruptly, firmly placing his feet and declining to budge from the stroller's line of sight. "Is something the matter with your dog?" the mother inquired, observing Echo's focused attention. Her voice carried a trace of irritation as she looked between her shopping bags and the service dog. "I'm sorry," Jessica started, but Echo interrupted her apology with a quick, forceful bark that resonated across the central court. People shopping turned towards the sound, their faces showing a mix of curiosity and disapproval. "Control your dog, please," the mother stated, her annoyance now clear. "You're frightening my baby." However, the baby hadn't moved at the loud bark, a detail that Jessica's training immediately recognized as odd. Typically, sleeping infants would react with a start to such a sound. Echo barked once more, then again, his barks becoming increasingly urgent. It wasn't aggression. Jessica understood Echo's behaviors completely. It was an alert, mirroring the pattern he exhibited when sensing a potential medical crisis. "Ma'am, I believe," Jessica began, but the mother interrupted her. "Service dogs shouldn't bark in public," the woman retorted, rising and moving defensively toward her stroller. "You need to leave." 2 mall security guards, both wearing navy blue uniforms, moved towards the disturbance. The taller guard, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, and a name tag identifying him as Wilson, spoke to Jessica. "Ma'am, we've received reports of your dog causing a disturbance for shoppers. Is everything all right?" Echo continued to bark, pulling towards the stroller with unusual focus. Jessica felt as though many people were watching her, judging, and presuming she lacked control over her service dog. The demands to apologize and depart were intense, yet Echo's actions conveyed a contrasting message, one that years of collaboration had shown her to be reliable in interpreting. "My service dog is medically trained," Jessica stated, working to maintain a composed tone. "He is specifically alerting to something concerning regarding that baby. This isn't typical behavior for him." The second security guard, a younger woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, approached the mother. "Ma'am, would you please check on your child, just to be cautious? This is absurd, the mother protested. She's fine. Simply taking her afternoon nap. I'm only shopping for less than an hour. Wilson frowned, visibly uneasy with the circumstances. Ma'am, he addressed Jessica, service animals are not permitted to be disruptive in public spaces. Mall policy dictates that. I'm aware of mall policy, Jessica responded, her voice revealing the influence of her military training. Echo wasn't issuing this alert arbitrarily. He was detecting a medically significant issue. Echo had now activated his complete medical alert sequence, sitting stiffly, vocalizing with a characteristic 3 barks, then pawing the ground. This was the same pattern he exhibited when identifying Jessica's rare seizures in advance, a behavior that had prevented serious injury on multiple occasions. Look, Jessica stated, referencing her medical experience, I served as a combat medic. Echo is programmed to recognize specific medical crises. There's an issue with that baby, and each moment we spend debating could be critical. Jessica initially encountered Echo on a rainy Tuesday at the Patriot Service Dogs Training Center in Colorado, recently completing intensive therapy and still using a cane for her left leg. She initially doubted a dog could achieve what medication and counseling had not. Instead of the warm welcome Jessica anticipated, Echo approached her cautiously, deliberately sniffing her hands, her legs, and her breath. He then settled directly in front of her, his eyes fixed on her face as if committing every detail to memory. The turning point in their partnership occurred 3 months into their training. Their initial period had presented difficulties. Jessica's fluctuating symptoms required Echo to identify patterns that even medical devices sometimes failed to detect. The team utilized scent samples gathered during Jessica's pre-seizure states, anxiety attacks, and normal days to train Echo to distinguish between them. Subsequently, one evening, while Jessica was having coffee with her roommate, Echo abruptly initiated his alert behavior, remaining rigid, emitting 3 distinct barks, then pawing the ground. Jessica felt well and initially attributed it to a training mistake. Echo, settle, she commanded. Instead of following instructions, Echo had turned to her roommate, Diane, repeating the alert pattern with increasing urgency. Maybe he needs to go out? Diane suggested, rising. She had taken 2 steps when she collapsed to the floor. Paramedics later confirmed she had experienced a dangerous blood sugar crash that could have resulted in a coma if she had been alone. Echo hadn't been alerting for Jessica at all. He recognized Diane's declining glucose levels, a condition she hadn't received a diagnosis for at that time. Following that day, Jessica's faith in Echo became unwavering. Whenever he provided an alert, she responded, irrespective of whether she experienced any symptoms herself. That established history of trust is what provided Jessica with the assurance to maintain her position now. Although met with skeptical looks and the mother's initial hesitation, Echo had gained her confidence through demonstrated dependability, and she was committed to supporting his warning, regardless of any awkwardness. A small group of people had assembled, whispering amongst themselves. An older woman approached. Perhaps you should examine the baby, dear. It's better to be cautious. The mother's certainty lessened a little as she looked at her child, who remained perfectly still. She claimed to be a deep sleeper, but a note of doubt entered her voice. Your baby hasn't reacted to any sounds, Jessica remarked gently. Not even a flinch at Echo's barking. That wasn't typical behavior for an infant. The mother's face changed as she processed this. She turned to the stroller, her shoulders showing strain. Please, please, Jessica said, her voice becoming more gentle. Echo has never been incorrect about a medical alert. Not in 3 years. My concern for your daughter prompted my request. The security guards looked at each other, appearing uncertain about the appropriate procedure for this uncommon circumstance. Wilson approached the stroller. Ma'am, may we briefly examine the situation? He asked. Then everyone can resume their activities. The mother paused, then agreed, moving towards the stroller. Very well. I'll demonstrate that she is simply sleeping, and then I anticipate an apology. Jessica remained behind, ensuring Echo stayed calm as the mother bent over the stroller and carefully pulled back the blanket with the elephant design. The woman's annoyed look quickly changed, and color left her face. Madison, she said, her voice growing louder. When the baby didn't react, She touched her daughter's cheek. "Madison, wake up, baby." The security guard stepped forward instantly as the mother's voice rose to panic. "She's not waking up." Tears streamed down her face as she desperately unfastened the stroller's buckles. "If something's wrong, please help." Wilson quickly radioed for medical help, and his partner assisted the mother in lifting the unresponsive infant from the stroller. The baby's lips were slightly bluish, and while her chest rose with shallow breaths, she didn't respond to her mother's increasingly frantic efforts to rouse her. "I'm a former combat medic," Jessica stated, stepping forward with composure. "Can I assist while we await medical personnel?" The mother nodded vigorously, tears running down her face as Jessica drew near. Echo remained calm, his earlier urgent alerting now replaced by watchful observation. Jessica assessed the baby's vital signs with practiced skill. "She is breathing, but it's shallow. Pulse is detectable but weak." Jessica turned to the mother. "Has Madison been unwell recently? Are there any existing medical concerns?" "No, nothing," the mother responded, stammering. "During her routine checkup last week, everything was perfect. She simply fell asleep while shopping." An older man then approached from the assembled group. "I'm Dr. Brenner, a pediatrician," he stated. "May I examine her?" With the mother's consent, the doctor rapidly assessed the infant. "Pupils are responsive but sluggish," he observed. "Temperature appears normal." He turned to Jessica and spoke softly. "This looks neurological. How long has she been unresponsive?" "I don't know," the mother cried. "She fell asleep approximately 40 minutes ago. She typically sleeps soundly during shopping trips." The movement of the stroller. Her voice faltered as the realization struck her. "Oh God, has she been like this the entire time? I believed she was simply sleeping." Mall medical staff arrived with a first aid kit and oxygen. Shortly after, paramedics navigated the crowd with a gurney and pediatric medical equipment. Service dogs signaled to the baby. Dr. Brenner briefed the paramedics. "The infant is unresponsive, but breathing. Possible neurological event is suspected." As the paramedics commenced their assessment, the lead EMT observed Echo, a Belgian Malinois medical alert dog. "These dogs are remarkable scent detectors. Last year, we had one alert to a carbon monoxide victim who exhibited no visible symptoms. Their olfactory capabilities are extraordinary," Dr. Brenner stated, watching Echo with renewed respect. "Certain studies indicate they can identify molecular changes at concentrations as low as parts per trillion. Finding it is comparable to locating a single drop of blood within 20 Olympic swimming pools." The medical uses are still being explored, especially for illnesses where early diagnosis significantly enhances results. Ramirez nodded as he secured a pulse oximeter to Madison's small finger. He had observed dogs detecting seizures prior to clinical signs, identifying malignancies before scans could, and even forecasting cardiac events. "This little one is lucky that you and your partner were present today." Amber Parker, holding her daughter's hand, whispered, "Your dog knew. How could he possibly know when I didn't?" The paramedics responded with practiced speed, securing the infant to the pediatric backboard and connecting monitoring devices. Paramedic Ramirez examined the readings, his expression concerned. "Oxygen saturation is lower than I'd like," he observed, placing a small oxygen mask over Madison's face. "These readings indicate potential seizure activity, though without convulsions. We are considering the possibility of absence seizures or a postictal state." "What does that mean? Will she be all right?" Amber asked, holding her daughter's hand. "We need to transfer her to Children's Hospital for a definitive diagnosis," Ramirez stated. "Fortunately, we are identifying this early, preventing potential oxygen deprivation that could cause harm." While a female paramedic was rechecking Madison's vital signs, she paused, moving closer to observe something. "Ms. Parker, has Madison received any medications recently?" the paramedic inquired. "No, none," Amber replied. "She has never taken medication." The paramedic indicated faint markings on the inner side of Madison's elbow. "These appear to be injection sites, but they are very small, the type we sometimes see with specific medical tests." Amber stated, with evident confusion, that the only injection her child had received was for routine vaccinations during the checkup last week. Dr. Brenner examined the marks and frowned. He noted that these were more recent than a week ago and did not align with typical vaccination injections. Echo immediately became alert, focusing intently on the diaper bag hanging from the stroller handle. Jessica recognized this particular behavior. Echo had identified something significant. "Ma'am," Jessica said cautiously, "would you mind if we examined Madison's diaper bag? Echo is signaling something within." Amber agreed promptly. Any prior doubts disappeared. Naturally, anything that could assist. Security Officer Wilson took the bag, and Jessica directed Echo through a methodical scent examination. The dog quickly pinpointed a side pocket, persistently nudging it with his nose, employing the method he uses for identifying substances. Within the pocket, a small medicine bottle was discovered, labeled as infant acetaminophen, though the security seal was broken and the bottle was only half full. "I didn't place that there," Amber stated, her face growing paler. "That's not our brand, and Madison hasn't required any pain medication." Ramirez carefully placed the bottle in an evidence bag. "We'll have this analyzed at the hospital. It's possible it contains another substance or has been altered." The second paramedic spoke with urgency. "Madison's oxygen levels are decreasing. Immediate transport is required." As preparations began to move Madison, Echo whimpered gently and rested his head against Jessica's leg. This was his way of indicating that his task was complete. He had identified the underlying issue well before human observation of the symptoms, potentially averting a significantly more severe outcome. "Your dog is remarkable," Dr. Brenner told Jessica as the paramedics began moving the gurney. "For 30 years, I have worked in pediatrics, and I observed no outward signs of distress in that child." Yet, he recognized the situation instantly. Amber, accompanying the gurney, glanced back at Jessica. "Thank you," she said, tears flowing down her face. "I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. If you hadn't insisted." She was unable to complete the sentence. "Thank Echo," Jessica responded quietly. "He is the hero here." The Central Court had been converted into a temporary command center. Police officers arrived soon after Madison was transported, establishing a perimeter around the stroller. A bottle from the diaper bag was now considered evidence in what the lead detective described as a possible instance of intentional drugging. Echo remained composed beside Jessica as she provided her statement to Detective Portman, a woman with a serious expression and kind eyes who documented every aspect of Echo's warning actions with considerable interest. According to Portman, the dog identified a problem with the child prior to any outward signs of illness. Jessica corroborated this, confirming that Echo possesses specialized scent detection training for medical emergencies. He is capable of identifying chemical alterations within the body that signify specific medical occurrences. Jessica further stated that Echo specifically indicated the diaper bag after the child received treatment. She explained that he exhibits distinct alert patterns depending on the circumstances. His actions concerning the bag indicate he perceived a substance present, rather than solely a medical issue. Portman added another notation. "Ms. Parker stated the baby had a checkup last week. We are investigating who may have accessed the child or her belongings since that time." Wilson arrived accompanied by the mall manager, a tense woman wearing a charcoal suit, who identified herself as Diane Reynolds. "Ms. Winters," Reynolds stated, "I want to express my sincere gratitude to you and your service dog for your actions today. Our security team will be reviewing our protocols concerning service animal alerts." She looked at Wilson, who appeared suitably concerned. "We recognize there are some areas where we need to improve our training." Echo was simply performing his trained tasks, Jessica responded. Wilson added, "The hospital contacted us with an update. The baby is showing signs of stabilization. Medical tests were underway, but the doctor mentioned that a further delay in treatment could have had serious consequences," then stopped speaking, leaving the meaning unstated. A young woman who had been shopping in the vicinity approached cautiously. "I filmed what occurred using my phone," she stated. "I didn't mean to be odd, but my brother is applying to service dog programs, and I wish to demonstrate how they function in public settings." She then asked if the footage would be beneficial to the police. Detective Portman promptly collected the woman's contact details. "That could be extremely valuable evidence, thank you." As the crowd gradually dispersed, an elderly man approached Jessica. "Young lady, I want you to know I've contacted the local news. People need to hear about this, not just about the unfortunate situation with the baby, but about the incredible work service dogs like yours perform." Jessica experienced a moment of worry regarding potential media coverage, but Echo instinctively leaned against her leg, offering the calming pressure that helped manage her nervous system. She inhaled deeply, concentrating on the most important aspects. Madison was undergoing treatment, an inquiry was in progress, and Echo had performed as he was trained. The police concluded securing the area while Jessica and Echo were readying to depart. Officer Wilson approached them at the mall entrance. He offered a sincere apology to both of us. 20 years in security and I've never seen anything like what your dog did today, he said. If we'd followed protocol and asked you to leave, he shook his head, expressing gratitude for your resolve. As Jessica and Echo walked through the parking lot toward her car, the adrenaline from the incident began to fade, leaving her physically drained but mentally clear. She stopped beside her SUV, kneeling down to bring herself eye level with her partner. "You did good, buddy," she whispered, gently stroking Echo's face and neck. "Really good." Echo's perceptive eyes stayed focused on hers, his expression reflecting complete satisfaction now that his task was finished. He moved closer, touching his forehead against Jessica's in the familiar gesture they frequently shared following challenging situations. Jessica reflected on how she almost questioned Echo due to societal expectations, the looks, the security personnel, the mother's initial displeasure. Apologizing and leaving would have been simpler, attributing Echo's behavior to a temporary lapse. The pressure of public opinion had nearly eclipsed years of collaboration and mutual trust, but Echo remained unwavering, continuing until someone acknowledged his perspective. His conviction prevented a child from a situation paramedics believed could have been intentional drugging. The realization sent a shiver down Jessica's spine, even under the warmth of the afternoon sun. As Jessica started the engine, a text from her VA counselor appeared on her phone. It referenced the news alert about a service dog saving a baby at Westfield. Could that have been Echo and her? The counselor suggested she call if she needed support following the event. News spread rapidly. By tomorrow, reporters would likely be calling, potentially requesting interviews. Ordinarily, this would cause a surge of anxiety, but surprisingly, it felt different this time. Sharing their experiences might help people recognize the crucial role service dogs play, not only in assisting their handlers, but also in safeguarding the broader community. Echo relaxed into his seat, his alert stance softening into a calm watchfulness, ever prepared but no longer sensing immediate threats. Jessica met his look in the rearview mirror, feeling a wave of thankfulness for this remarkable animal who had profoundly changed her life and now had protected someone else. Believe in your dog. This was the initial instruction in service dog training, the basis for all subsequent commands. Recent events had demonstrated why this belief wasn't merely training protocol, but significant insight. Occasionally, a companion could detect things beyond human perception and human assessment. Occasionally, trust meant the difference between a disaster and a fortunate outcome. Have you ever observed an instance where an animal detected something humans entirely overlooked? What accounts for some animals' remarkable ability to sense medical emergencies even before symptoms are apparent? Would you have believed a service dog's alert regarding a stranger's baby, despite the potential for embarrassment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of heroic service animals. Click the bell icon to receive notifications when we upload new videos each week. Please share this video with friends and family who value the special connection between people and their service animals. Watch our previous stories about canine heroes now, and tune in tomorrow at the same time for another inspiring story you won't want to miss.